Tonight, no faith. Canadians are losing trust in the justice system. Extra measures. Northern Health moves to combat cases of the measles. And making progress. 2 fires in Northeast BC lose their wildfire of note status. Good evening and thank you very much for joining us. And we begin tonight with the revolving door of justice here in British Columbia. 2 suspects this week accused of violent crimes in the Dawson Creek area. One allegedly involved in a manhunt for the second time in less than a year. The other suspected of ramming a police vehicle after a high-speed chase. So what do they have in common? They were both granted bail.
When we have a person who we know is a risk to the public, or whether it's a property crime prolific offender or whether it's a violent repeat offender, when they're in jail, it's a break for the community. You know, that person has an opportunity then to receive help, therapy, treatment.
The public safety critic for BC's official opposition says it is exhausting for local police in a community like Dawson Creek to put their lives on the line only to see repeat and violent offenders freed on bail. On Tuesday, Clayton Smith-Zimmerman from the Northwest Territories was charged after a high-speed chase. Police allege he tried to injure 2 officers by backing up into their police cruiser at a high rate of speed. A judge granted Smith-Zimmerman bail. And this past weekend, Mounties alleged after a 12-hour manhunt that Jeffrey Parr was arrested near One Island Lake. Less than 8 months ago, Parr was also charged after being the subject of another manhunt. Early Sunday morning, Mountie said Parr defied a number of court orders not to have contact with his ex-girlfriend. Well, after allegedly confronting her, then ramming her vehicle with his truck, Parr was charged with 4 counts of violating those court orders. Despite that, Judge Mark Arena also released Parr on bail.
The justice system, and it comes from the lack of accountability. When you have people doing things like ramming police cars, going on 12-hour manhunts, breaching condition after condition, and still being let out of jail, this is why people don't trust the system anymore, and why we see actually less people reporting crimes. Because they just don't feel safe to do that. They know that if they report someone who has even hurt them, that the possibility is that that person will just be let go from jail, making them feel insecure because they feel retaliation.
Sturco, who is also a former RCMP officer, says there's plenty of blame to go around. Back in 2019, the Trudeau government signed into law Bill C-75. That instructed judges to release the accused at the earliest opportunity with the least restrictive conditions possible. She also says the BC NDP has underfunded the justice system. There are now too few prosecutors who are overworked and sometimes can't properly run bail hearings. And finally, Sturco says judges need to actually prosecute people who continually breach their bail conditions. A toxic drug alert has been issued for Dawson Creek. Northern Health says a green substance sold as down has been linked to sudden overdoses. The health authority said overdoses occur when the substance is inhaled. Drug users are being instructed to use caution. Sudden overdoses are requiring naloxone and/or hospitalization. Northern Health is urging drug users to know the signs of overdosing and not to use drugs alone. We'll confirm measles infections continue to rise across the country, including right here in the Peace region. There are more suspected cases in our province, and we're learning tonight one person was hospitalized. CTV's Penny Daflos on who's getting sick and what the plan is to keep the virus from spreading.
Hospitals in northern British Columbia are hours apart and many people don't have easy access to a doctor. That's why having 18 confirmed cases of measles in the north is likely an undercount of the true number.
It's a part of a national and international resurgence of measles. So there is a possibility that there are other measles cases.
Another 2 suspected cases over the weekend saw one person hospitalized for a time. Northern health officials say there's a pattern to the infections.
Right now we are seeing a cluster of family and friends through the unimmunized kind of individuals that we are seeing. That's where the measles is spreading, and we're seeing that confirmed cases and epidemiological linked cases.
It may not be a coincidence that northern BC also has a lot of traffic with Alberta, where cases are much higher. 2/3 of the cases across the country are in teens and children. Communities including Windsor are already preparing for a potential surge in the coming months as kids mingle at summer camps.
We have all of those fun aspects in place, just with a few extra safety precautions in place as well.
The Alberta Medical Association wants to see pharmacists be allowed to vaccinate, as well as roving clinics in communities.
We need it at hockey arenas, we need it in schools, we need it at swimming pools, we need it everywhere.
Northern Health already held a special measles vaccination clinic over the weekend in Fort St. John.
We are starting with the Northeast and Peace River region. We are adding additional immunization clinics and opportunities, as well as additional public communications.
With childhood immunization rates dropping in BC, doctors are reminding parents this is one of the most studied, longest running, and effective immunizations against a virus that could lead to severe illness and even death. Penny Daflos, CTV News, Vancouver.
Two of the biggest wildfires in British Columbia have been downgraded and are no longer considered to be fires of note. They include the 263 square kilometer Cascatnaw River wildfire near Kelly Lake, which is no longer out of control. Late this afternoon, the Peace River Regional District canceling the last evacuation alert for the fire. And the Pocket Knife Creek wildfire northwest of Fort St. John is the biggest blaze in BC at more than 1,500 square kilometers. Both fires are now considered to be held, meaning they aren't expected to grow beyond current perimeters as fire crews get help from heavy rain here in northeastern BC. Well, that leaves the 800 square kilometer Summit Creek wildfire west of Fort Nelson. It's burning out of control as the province's only other fire of note, indicating that either homes are threatened or it's highly visible. There's more rain in the forecast Friday. There are currently 85 wildfires actively burning across British Columbia. Some developing news tonight from next door in Alberta. A rock slide may have left dozens injured, and CTV News has learned there's at least one death. It happened at the Bow Glacier Falls Trail in Banff National Park. The police and Parks Canada both say they're aware of the incident. Officials fear dozens of people could be seriously injured. Emergency services are responding to the scene. That includes an air ambulance. Canada Post has reached a deal with its second largest union. After 18 months of negotiations, Canada Post has signed a new collective agreement with the Canadian Postmasters and Assistants Association. That represents over 8,500 employees who primarily manage post offices in rural areas of Canada. The company's largest union, CUP W, is still without a contract. It won't come as much of a surprise to Canadians that flying in this country can be expensive. And now a new report backs that up, saying more competition is needed to bring prices down. CTV's Abigail Beeman reports.
If you've bemoaned that it's cheaper to fly to Europe than visit family in Canada, you're not alone. A new report from the Competition Bureau found that's a common complaint, along with limited options, high prices, and bad service. Also not surprising, the ownership snapshot in 2023, with Air Canada and WestJet holding the majority of market share. And contributing to high ticket prices, user fees accounting for 30 cents of every dollar.
If we can pull those fees out, it gives a lot of room for margin for even these discount players to expand more than they have been already.
The report makes 10 recommendations to fix the problems, calling on the government to prioritize competition in policy, support northern and remote access, and leverage international capital and experience. That means allowing foreign-owned carriers to fly domestic routes and getting rid of restrictions on foreign ownership.
We are focused on competition and measures to increase competition for the Canadian marketplace. And unquestionably, foreign investment plays a key role here.
You're opening up Pandora's box.
Some are concerned foreign carriers would harm the market by only going after high traffic routes, leaving smaller communities underserviced.
Don't expect to see, a United Airlines showing up in Yarmouth or a Singapore Airlines showing up in North Bay. Not going to happen.
The Transportation Minister's office tells CTV News they are reviewing the report carefully and acknowledge Canadians want affordable air travel, but won't say whether they're considering making any changes to foreign ownership rules. Abigail Beeman, CTV News, Ottawa.
And a new government report says the number of new homes built each year in Canada needs to nearly double in order to restore affordability to pre-pandemic levels. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation estimates almost 500,000 new housing units a year are needed to close this supply gap that has led to higher home prices. The report shows Ontario, Nova Scotia, and British Columbia have the largest housing supply gaps by province. Montreal faces the largest supply gap of any major city, followed by Ottawa. The report concludes that doubling the pace of housing construction is achievable, but not without a much larger workforce, more private investment, and less government regulation. Prime Minister Mark Carney is making some tweaks to his counter-tariff strategy. Their changes, the government says, reflect progress made in negotiations with the United States. Here's Michael Couture with more.
Stock markets opened higher on the news of the first court ruling against U.S. tariffs, while Prime Minister Mark Carney pointed out the decision was consistent with Canada's argument
that the U.S. IEEPA tariffs were unlawful as well as unjustified.
But other tariffs slapped on Canadian goods were unaffected by the court's ruling.
We recognize that our trading relationship with the United States is still profoundly and adversely threatened and affected by similarly unjustified 232 tariffs against steel, aluminum, and the auto sector.
Following the court appeal, which put the tariffs back on, the finance minister had a message of defiance.
I know we're going to fight for Canadian industry, Canadian workers.
Many of those workers feel left in limbo with all of this back and forth.
It's a real impact on business, and the uncertainty is what's toxic for business, not knowing the rules of the game, having a constant on-again, off-again whipsaw effect.
That's because yesterday's ruling pointed out a number of other avenues Trump could take to impose tariffs. For example, retaliating against Canada's digital sales tax.
He could go to Section 891, which of the income tax code, which has never been used before, but 50% tariffs on any Canadian corporation functioning in the United States.
Prime Minister Carney reiterated the need to strengthen trading relationships with allies and between provinces. And that is on the agenda when he meets with premiers next week. Michael Couture, CTV News, Ottawa.
The province of Nova Scotia is offering up $150,000 for information about two young children who vanished almost 7 weeks ago. 6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan were both reported missing on May the 2nd. The RCMP says it has interviewed over 50 people, received almost 500 tips, and conducted polygraph tests in the hunt for clues. Despite a number of large-scale searches, some focused on specific areas, the children have not been found. U.S. President Donald Trump says he will decide whether the U.S. will strike Iran in the next 2 weeks. Trump meeting with his National Security Council today, reviewing possible attack plans. CTV's Joy Melvin has more from Washington.
Overnight, a violent attack on an Israeli hospital. The war raging on as the Israeli army intensifies its strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities. The U.S. president weighing the risk of America joining Israel's war.
Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, he will make that decision within the next 2 weeks.
The White House says Iran has been weakened, and with a diplomatic off-ramp possible, the president, after reviewing U.S. attack plans, holding off for now. Pre-positioning aircraft carriers and strike groups in the region, even stocking up on blood supplies. Israel has damaged most of Iran's nuclear facilities, but top of its target list is Iran's Fordo uranium enrichment facility, buried deep underground. Only the U.S. has the stealth bombers needed to carry the 30,000-pound bombs that could destroy it. Israel's prime minister pressuring the president.
He gave them the chance to do it through negotiations. They strung him along. You don't string along Donald Trump.
With the specter of the Iraq war hanging over the president's decision, it's causing deep divisions among Trump's supporters.
If you're calling for toppling in government, it's incumbent on you to know something about the country and to think through the consequences of that. And you haven't, and you don't. And I'm saying that's reckless.
Okay, you engage in reckless rhetoric.
Conservative Tucker Carlson and Congressman Ted Cruz in an explosive shouting match, with Democrats warning.
And if there's one thing we know, it's hell of a lot easier to start a a war in the Middle East than it is to end one. And I have no idea what this administration's plan is going forward.
The president has reviewed possible attack plans, but with a chance at substantial negotiation, the president is buying time, stepping back to see what Israel can do, but holding out the option of U.S. military action. Joy Malbin, CTV News, Washington.
Just days before a highly anticipated NATO summit, Spain has rejected a proposal for members to increase their defense spending. It's expected the countries will be asked to spend 5% of their GDP, but today, Spain said it cannot commit to that number, calling it unreasonable. It's requesting a more flexible formula that either makes the spending goal optional or excludes Spain from it. Any agreement to raise defense spending would require unanimous approval by the 32 member states. Canada's Prime Minister will be attending the NATO summit in The Hague next Tuesday and Wednesday. Mark Carney has pledged this country will reach the current defense spending goal of 2% of GDP for the first time since 1990. Well, back here on BC's west coast, RCMP are investigating a rare instance of dangerous tailgating between a BC ferry and a personal watercraft. Check out this video posted to social media. It's incredible. It shows an individual directly behind and then underneath the stern of a very large BC ferry vessel. The incident is believed to have happened along Horseshoe Bay route last week and has since been reported to the Sunshine Coast RCMP. In a statement to CTV News, BC Ferry says the maneuver was not only extremely dangerous, but also illegal under the federal marine safety regulations. All right, please do stay tuned. I'll be right back after the break with weather.